All right, is everybody set to go? We're off and running, are we, Jer?
Appears to be that we are.
All right. We are looking at the moon tonight. I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you. You know what I think that was? I think that was a great big laugh that Liberace had on the world. Because he had all those lawsuits that people would say that he was homosexual, and he would win every lawsuit, and then he died of AIDS, and there's nothing he could do about that. But if he was doing something naughty in a very naughty position, he would be looking at the moon and seeing you. And I bet you that's what he had. He was laughing at the world every time he sang that song. I don't know, it's just my my perverted mind sees things that way.
That makes sense to me.
Now that, none of these are going to make it to television. Yeah, none of these are ever going to make it to television. If they did, that few minutes certainly wouldn't. All right. The guessing game is going to be very hard tonight because you'd never guess some of these at all. They're just very obscure people or people that we're not always familiar with, but that's important to work with complete strangers and to come to some understanding of them where you have to rely on your intuition and you have to rely on the technique that you're using and not rely on what you know from other sources. It's a very important thing to do. The more faith that you have in your intuition, the better you're going to do with astrology. All right? My first sentence is, I am an emotional paradox because on one hand, my maternal instincts are aggressively objectifying my keen imagination, and on the other, I have a hidden, delicate femininity that lacks decisiveness. Now that's a pretty obvious sentence. The emotional paradox, anytime you're dealing with the moon, you're dealing with emotions. But when you're dealing with a paradox, it means an opposition. That's about one of the only uses that you ever find for paradox astrologically is with the opposition. So then you can see we're going to be looking at the two different sides. The maternal instincts are the moon. Aggressively is Aries. Objectifying is the second house. And the keen imagination is moon in Aries. On the other side, I have a hidden eighth house, delicate, Libra, Venus, femininity, that lacks decisiveness, up and down, up and down, up and down. Abby, what do you have?
My aggressive subconscious clinging can sometimes bring multiplication to shared problems because of the beauty I see in love.
That's interesting. That's one we'll never know because we won't know about, maybe you guys do, but I don't know anything about this person's life. Do you have any? Do you have any? Assignment even, huh? Well, here is a, you want the assignment?
Yeah.
Here's a, yeah, okay.
Is that right?
Does it say moon on it?
Tuesday.
Look at the third paragraph. Does it say moon in the third paragraph?
No, it says one.
Here's, take mine then. Oh, I didn't realize I dropped it. All right. You got another one, Abby? No? All right. My second one is I am ambivalent between vigorously protecting my possessions and tenderly compensating for others secretly. Fairly simple, fairly straightforward. Ambivalence is always the opposition, but when you have Libra in an opposition, that even greatly increases the likelihood to ambivalence. And that's what you want to look for, because the more redundancy that you have, or the more redundancy that you find, astrological redundancy increases the likelihood of something. So between vigorously protecting my possessions, that's obviously the Aries, the moon in Aries in the second house. The moon is protection. The possessions is the second house. And tenderly, again, Venus in Libra, compensating is Libra for others secretly. All right, does anybody have the wildest guess who it might be? We know it's a female. It is someone who is in politics.
Not Hillary, I don't think.
No. Mm-mm. I'll give you a big, broad hint.
Too assertive, huh?
All of her underwear is boxer shorts.
Barbara Boxer?
Boxer.
Reno.
Yeah. All right. The next one that we're looking at here, let's see. Now she's got my assignment and I don't know what I'm doing. So we are looking here at the moon conjoined Saturn, conjoined Uranus, and they are trine to Neptune. Very unusual combination.
Wow.
My austere emotional control might seem too rigid for expression, but it compresses my feelings so much that the results are unique and they triangulate with weird mental insights into universals. You know who that one is already, right? All right, the austere emotional control is the Saturn conjoined to the moon. The rigidity is both the Saturn and especially the Taurus. Taurus is like bedrock rigid. It might seem that way too much for expression, and expression is the fifth house, but the compression, which is the conjunction, but it compresses my feelings, the emotions, the moon, so much that the results, meaning moving out of the conjunction, are unique, being the Uranus part, and they locate or triangulate together with weird mental insights, which is Neptune in Virgo, Neptune being weird and insightful, as Uranus is insightful, and the mental part is obviously Virgo, into universals, understanding the big picture of it. All right, Abby, you got one?
I am moody when it comes to matters of love displays, especially when I feel I should be disciplined and steady giving. I have one more.
Okay,
Should I read it?
sure.
My creativity tends to be reserved to materialistic expression, which is in harmony with my idealistic approach and perfectionism in shared finances.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. The only part I would disagree with would be the shared finances part. That's a little bit extra added on, but everything else in there does describe the person quite well. All right, my cold, condensed sentiments in my creations give expression to ghoulish, paranoid ideals of perfect genius.
Wow. Neptune in the 8th house in Virgo is strange.
The cold part is the Saturn. The condensation can either be Saturn or Taurus. The sentiments is the moon. The creations is the fifth house. The ghoulish is the Neptunian, and paranoid shows that there's some fear in there with the Saturn. And there are ideals of perfect genius, something that you understand it so perfectly that you just get it perfectly right.
What was he?
What?
What was he?
An artist,
Ideals.
very famous artist.
Oh.
No. No, not that kind of artist. Different medium.
Boris Karloff?
No,
Filmmaker?
no. Musician, songwriter.
Oh.
Could only be one person now. Mark doesn't listen to music or he'd know it right away.
Cold, condensed sentiments in my creations.
Yeah, even bluesy sometimes. In recent years, he's been quite bluesy.
Oh, so he's still alive.
Still alive.
No,
Bob Dylan.
No way! This is Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Oh.
In fact, the conjunction, it revolves and it's Saturn conjoined the moon, conjoined Uranus, conjoined Jupiter, conjoined the moon. And it's complicated because it takes in other things there. All right.
Saturn is the paranoid.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's not, you know, they claimed that when he had that terrible motorcycle accident that was just a warning from the CIA saying, if you keep messing around the way you are and we'll take you out. And we could take you out. That's what they claimed, that everything changed for him after that.
Yeah.
And this young man that was just killed, the football player that was just killed, the claim is that a week before his house was broken into and they left the knife lay right on his bed. This was no ordinary burglary because they had the phone wire cut, they had the alarm system cut, and there's probably going to be a very large-scale investigation. I think he had a bad history in the past. All right.
Wow. Weird mental insights into human.
All right. We're looking at now at the moon in Gemini and the 9th house. And it is trine to Mars, conjoined Mercury in Libra and the 1st house. Let's let Abby lead off. You don't have one.
No more sentences.
No more. Oh my goodness. A whole week and all you could do is squeak out 3? Oh,
We were lamenting before we came.
I'm thankful that I got even 3 out of them. I'm hoping that before the end of the class that everybody's going to offer at least one sentence, even Mark and Jerry. I'll ride them, I'll tease them, I'll be merciless toward them until they do.
I'll say next time I'll have all the sentences done, because if I say I'll do it, then I'll do it.
Good. I like that. Someone who lives in their word.
We'll see.
All right. My impressionable mindfulness in elevated settings produces an attitude atmosphere to successfully project an outward appearance of poised and considerate mental alertness. The impressionability is always the moon. The mindfulness is in Gemini. This is a strange sentence because it's just hunt and peck. I had all of the sheets laid out the way Abby's going to have them all laid out, and I just went around and picked one off out of each one and made a sentence out of them. In elevated settings means that it's up in the 9th or 10th house. Produces an attitude atmosphere. Talking about, in general, the attitude being the moon, it produces an atmosphere that can project. The projection in this sentence means the trine. An outward appearance is the 1st house. Poise is Libra, whatever one you want, in the 1st house. That's considerate. Mercury in Libra thinks of the other person. And mentally alert. Mars conjoined Mercury indicates an alertness. All right, the second sentence. My aggressive thoughts and environmental observations, externalized gracefully, accomplish changeable mental, emotional opinions which are adaptable. The aggressive thoughts is Mars and Mercury. And the environmental observations is Mercury in the first house, looking at the external environment. Gracefully is Libra. Accomplishment is the trine. Changeable mental emotional opinions, the changeability is the Gemini and the Moon. When you have there the keywords of changeability for the Moon and Gemini come together, that's this combination you want to grab. Mental emotional, saying that Moon and Mercury are both changeable, one in the librations and the other in the oscillations of Gemini. Opinions, which are adaptable, and adaptability is Gemini. Anybody have any guesses? It's somebody who's famous for just these kinds of sentences. Made the whole life out of just these two sentences.
Boring life.
Any guesses, Mark?
What's she do?
No, we're wearing a female here.
What's she do then?
Is an interviewer.
Oh, so Barbara Walters?
Barbara Walters.
Oh,
Yeah. Just exactly what you'd expect. In fact, what's really nice about it is that the sun is also in Libra, but it's in the 12th house, so the ego gets stashed away, and what is out in front is like the sparkling conversation that encourages other people. It's really nice what people create, isn't it?
Yeah.
Their lives are such great creations.
She's great.
Yeah, yeah. I like Terry Gross a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know Barbara Water that much because I don't have television. She doesn't have. And Larry King is pretty good also.
She's got to be, I think she's just about retired if she isn't retired.
Oh yeah, let's see. She's born in 1929, so she's approaching 80.
Yeah. I thought she retired. I thought she
Yeah,
retired last year.
Yeah, she's 78 years old.
So Gemini in the ninth
Yeah,
is elevated, refined.
talkative. Well, the elevation is the 9th house. Yeah,
Elevation is the ninth house.
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, talkative.
The combination we're looking at now is we have a male. And this male has the moon in Cancer conjoined the first house. And it sextiles Mars in Taurus in the 11th house. So it's real simple, really simple. Somebody like Julie should be able to almost improvise sentences right on the spot.
Almost.
All right, my first, what? My drive toward utopianism, held with bedrock steadfastness, expands and reflects into fruitful imaginations about universal problems and general emotional impairment.
George Bush.
No.
That's funny.
The drive is always Mars.
Okay.
Toward utopianism is the 11th house.
Oh, really?
Yes. And the bedrock steadfastness is the Taurus. It reflects, indicating the sextile, fruitful imaginations, which is a perfect combination because the keywords for the moon and for Cancer are both fruitful and imaginative, about universal problems. The 12th house is universal problems. And general emotional impairment, there almost always seems to be a problem with the 12th house, or that's where the impairment comes. And the generality of it indicates that it is universal kind of problem, 12th house problem. All right. These emotional conceptions are about these emotional conceptions about general suffering. There should be a comma after the suffering, foster and perfect a self-image which will fiercely express itself with theatrical determination. Oh, there's an opposite to Mercury too, isn't there? All right. Emotional conceptions are the moon. Or no, there's not there. Oh, I see, there's a trine to the sun. The moon is trine to sun, which is not opposite Mars, all right? The emotional conceptions are the moon. About general suffering is the 12th house. Foster and protect come from the trine, and the self-image is the sun. And the fierce expression is Scorpio in the 5th house, with theatrical determination, meaning to say that this person is going to make a show of it all. I don't think anybody will get this one. It's a historical figure. The birth is 1879. Abby was still on the 3rd heaven then. Anybody have any guesses? Who had a fierce, vigorous imagination and expressed himself almost vehemently?
The writer who wrote Huck Finn,
No.
Mark Twain, I was thinking.
No,
No,
no.
my direct towards utopianism.
It's
Harriet Beecher.
Will Rogers.
Oh, Will Rogers. Is that a woman?
Uh-huh. Yeah. He was a latecomer. All right.
I can try improvising number 5.
All right. Great.
My majestic, homebound, emotional environment, or my majestic subconscious emotional
Okay.
attitude interacts smoothly with a generosity and optimism about death.
Okay.
Oh,
How about others, helping others?
helping others.
What we're looking at here is a female.
Okay.
And it's a female who has this moon in Leo, trine to Jupiter in Sagittarius. It's almost exactly like my sentence. You must be reading my mind.
I know.
See? My maternal instincts, which is the moon, and especially in the 4th house, it's likely to be instinctual, fostering feelings, which are another way of saying the moon, though hidden, meaning to say it's in the 4th house and can't be seen, and perhaps subjective, the 4th house, are regal, Leo, and noble, Leo and Sagittarius and Jupiter, and they edify my ideas of generosity. All of those edification, generosity, and all of those are Jupiter and Sagittarius for others, and bring me to general emotional idealism, which is just moon trine Jupiter.
General emotional idealism, moon trine Jupiter.
Okay. My partner or my alter ego elevates me from proud personal moodiness so I can imagine ways to simplify my personal problems. That's eventually I'm going to do some different kinds of assignments, and eventually we're going to have assignments where you write only sentences like this last one, because they are sentences for solving problems or life situations. It's one thing to first be able to describe, which is what we're doing now, but eventually you're going to have to explain, and then eventually you're going to have to apply. And so we'll just start out with the descriptions, and then we'll have the more explanatory kinds of keyword sentences or sentences in general, and then we'll have sentences that indicate ways of helping. This is another political figure that I know absolutely nothing about, like the first one. I'm ignorant. I can't even give you a. I can't even give you a hint because I wouldn't know what to give for a hint. It's Barbara Milkowski.
Oh, her.
Oh, yeah, all right. I took it because it was just a nice combination. All right. We're back to doing a.
Question.
Yes.
My partner or my alter ego, is that fourth house?
No, that's the seventh house.
Right, but so moon,
Jupiter's in the seventh house.
eighth.
No, it's in the seventh.
Oh, not in the not in the.
Oh, not in the assignment.
No,
Oh,
the assignment is in the eighth.
oh, that's why you said what you said.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay.
Please forgive me.
Okay.
If you want the picture, here's the picture of it in the seventh house.
Okay. So this is just a typo.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we're back to looking at a male again. This time we have the moon in Virgo. And it is trine to Pluto in Gemini. And it is trine to Mars in Capricorn. Now there are a few fringe things that I don't know whether I put them in the assignment or not. Just the grand trine, all right. Want to try another one on the fly?
We don't have a grant in our sixth sentence. We have the moon in Virgo in the fifth, trine Mars in Capricorn in the eighth,
Yeah.
and square
Square what?
Pluto in Gemini in the first.
Oh, yes, that's correct. That's sorry. I'm looking at it wrong here. You got it right.
My critical emotional, some
Mm-hmm.
expressivity. I'm just going to go with interact smoothly with proper actions around legacies, and is blocked by changeable transformations in my immediate environment.
Okay.
That's
That's pretty good.
pretty good.
Yeah. It's similar to what I've come up with again. Mine reads, I might emotionally obsess about the niceties of words. It's the same thing you said, only just slightly different words. And grammar. That's, moon in Virgo is petty like that. Because of an early childhood spent in a dry, staunch literary environment, which might block me from expressing my feelings in a containing perfectionism. But if I simplify my desires vigorously to secret ambitions, I can succeed while in action.
Mars in Capricorn
Yeah,
is
yeah.
proper action.
Yeah, and it is also ambition. Let's look at it all, piece by piece. Emotional obsession is moon afflicted by Pluto. And what would it be? Obsessing about words and grammar from Virgo. And it might be because of an early childhood, the first house, spent in a dry, staunch literary environment. The dry literary environment is Gemini, and the staunch, hold them in there a certain way, is the Pluto, which might block me, which is the square, from expressing my feelings, the square to the moon, in a containing perfectionism, and the containment is the square. And the perfectionism is again Virgo. But if I simplify my desires, moon, trine Mars, doesn't want anything complicated, to vigorously secret ambitions, meaning to say that the Mars is vigorous and the eighth house is secrets, and Mars in Capricorn is especially ambitious. Capricorn is the sign of ambitions. I can succeed while in action, meaning a trine involving two very active planets, the moon and Mars.
And Mars active?
Yeah. moves quite a bit every day.
Right, the 10th Lord, that makes sense.
My desire for earthly success, though productive of emotional health through action or acting, may leave me childless in a petty sterility, especially if demand corners my hypochondriacal fretfulness.
Oh, this sounds nasty.
The desire for success is the trine. Both planets, Mars and the Moon, are planets of desire. Productivity is from the trine. Emotional health is trine between emotional planets. Through action or acting, again, two very active planets. But it may leave me in a petty sterility. Both Gemini and Virgo are considered sterile signs because they're just dryly mental and nothing more. Especially if demand, which is Pluto, corners, square, my hypochondriacal fretfulness.
Question.
Yes.
I believe I heard you say desire to succeed, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's trying, isn't it already a success?
No, the trine, or no. It can be in some cases, but a trine doesn't necessarily mean it's in the bag. It means that if you want to finish up and complete it, that's available to you. That's why you have to use observation, because in some cases it is already complete, and in other cases it means that it's available, but you just have to do the work and you will succeed. There are no standard interpretations that will always work. I don't think anybody would ever guess this person. I tried to put the hints in the sentence, in the sentences.
I heard a hint, but then it didn't.
It's an actor, a very famous actor.
Still living?
No. I think Mark might be the only one. I don't know if you... He was on television a few times when I was a child. A famous Shakespearean actor.
Not
Richard
Ustinov.
Burton.
No,
I was going to say not Ustinov.
no. It's Laurence Olivier.
Laurence Olivier.
Yeah,
Laurence Olivier was a hypochondriac?
apparently so.
Poor man.
Probably had all kinds of stage fright and things like that, because the moon is in that fifth house, indicating that on the stage that there would be some blocking. But apparently he had the enough get-go to push beyond it.
Where does the childless come from?
The Pluto squares the moon, and it's in sterile signs. Like ancient astrologers would say that the moon in any Aries sign would be like a woman would be barren, for example. So the Pluto in a square like that is a denier. Either that, or you might have a child, like it or not. It might be an enfant terrible, a tremudgeon of a child. Or, is there a word tremudgeon or tremagin?
Crumagin?
Tremagin.
Tremagin. Tremagin. Yes.
You huh? No, tremagin. It was one of the names for, what's his name? The Mongol, not Attila, but who's the other one?
Tom?
Yes, yes. I think one of his Turkish names was Tremagin.
Oh.
It isn't in the keyword list, so you're not responsible for it.
Didn't come up on the word of the day yet.
No. All right,
This is sweet.
we're past the halfway point. In this case, we have the moon in Libra, and it is trine to Neptune and Pluto in the second house. The moon is in the seventh, and the moon is trine to Jupiter in Aquarius in the eighth house.
Okay.
lovely emotionality, isn't it? Motherhood is a thoroughly positive experience for me because I treat it as a loving service. The thoroughly positive experience, obviously, you say that if the moon is in a grand trine, that's going to be a thoroughly positive experience, everything that has to do with the moon. And the reason why is because she treats it as a loving service. Loving service is Libra and the 7th house. Very simple sentence, but that's one of the nice qualities of the moon. It is simplicity, yes.
You mean 6th house?
6th house, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Because Jerry isn't looking at the sheet, you have to be my corrector tonight. I have powerful financial support, which also has spiritual stability through flexibility and variation. And I have excellently buoyant friends who resolve maternal feelings into higher altruism, so my parenting is a higher calling. Powerful financial support is obviously the Pluto in the 2nd house, which also has spiritual stability. The stability is the Taurus. Just as wealth can, the stability is the Pluto, and the spirituality is the Neptune. And it has it through flexibility, which is the Gemini, and variation.
Oh.
I have excellently buoyant friends. Jupiter in Libra. Jupiter is the buoyancy. Aquarius in Aquarius, it is a buoyant kind of quality, and the 11th house is friendship. Who resolve maternal feelings into higher altruism, meaning that the resolution is one of the trine keywords. The maternal feelings get turned into a higher altruism. The higher is the Jupiterian part, and the altruism is both Aquarius and the 11th house. So my parenting is a higher calling. A famous United States matriarch.
Rose Kennedy?
What? Yes.
Rose Kennedy?
Oh, Mark's on a roll! Yes.
Oh.
He wants to get started. He'll get every last one of them. All right. The next one, I got him on the next one. He doesn't know anything about the next one. He lives a clean life.
I might get it then.
All right. In sentence number 8, we're back to the male again. And we have the moon in Scorpio in the 2nd house. And it's sextile to Jupiter in Capricorn in the 4th house. And it's trine to Saturn in Pisces in the 6th house. And it's trine to Pluto in Cancer in the 10th house. Whoa, even more good aspects than Rose Kennedy. Want to try one on the fly? This is a pretty difficult one, I would think. But all right. My mother was strict and formal with me and helped me to perfect an impeccable emotional discipline through absolute and exacting limitation, and this has served me in every aspect of my work life. That's probably the best sentence of the night. The strictness, the mother is obviously the moon. The strictness is Scorpio, and the formality is the 2nd house. And that has helped me to perfect, the helping end of perfection, indicate there's a positive aspect, the trine, impeccable emotional discipline. Both Saturn and Pluto are discipline planets. And the Capricorn, where the Jupiter is also discipline. Through absolute, Pluto, exacting, Saturn, limitation. But you're looking at the positive side of them. And this has served me, meaning something positive, in every aspect of my work life. Because it's the second house, the sixth house, and the 10th house, all of which have to do with the work life. All right, my basic feelings, the moon, are very deep. Scorpio is very deep, Saturn is very deep, Pluto is very deep, and Capricorn is pretty deep. And I am responsible, second house, for my desires. Desires being the moon in Scorpio. Whether working with others or responding to social influence. Responding to social influence is the 10th house, and working with others is Saturn in the 6th house. I never got around to much of Jupiter in the 4th house.
Yeah. What is?
You never guess who this is from the description. He's known for something else. He's known for the conjunction of Venus and Uranus in the 8th house.
I don't know him for that, but what did he do?
He's a movie actor. Even did a little bit of directing.
Maybe Clint Eastwood, I don't know.
No?
No?
Venus and Uranus in the 8th house conjunct.
Yeah.
Doctor?
Old, young?
Depending on how old you are. I think he's about my age. Let's see, what is it here? Yeah, 1 year older than I am. Wow, it's hard to think of him as 70.
Coppola?
No?
What's the Sundance guy?
No?
It kind of sounds like
It's Warren Beatty.
It's Warren Beatty.
You'd
Oh.
never guess it was Warren Beatty, but it has
Newman.
all of that kind of control.
Okay.
It was said, he made love to all of the famous women in his generation. All of these beautiful women. And what happened was they all said the same thing. When you were with Warren Beatty, there was nothing else in the world for him but you. That he made all of his conquests, if you want to think of them as conquests, by having his attention on them and only them. And that's that concentrated Pluto-Saturn sort of thing, won't let up. It's a sad way to waste it, as far as I'm concerned. Well, I mean, sleeping with a whole bunch of beautiful women. What do you get for your life for that? What have you done for the world, or what have you done for yourself?
Hard to say what feeling happened in those bed moments. Hard to say.
Yeah, all right. All right. This one you might guess. This is a female again, and it's the moon in Sagittarius in the 6th house, trine to the sun in Leo in the 3rd house. Very simple combination. My basic emotions are harmonious with my inner life, and both are spirited, outgoing, and find opportunities for expression in practical matters such as elementary education and occupation. Basic emotions are the moon. Harmonious with the inner self means the moon is trine with the self, with the sun. Sun being the self. Both are spirited and outgoing. Those are fiery things, and find opportunities for expression, again, outpouring, in practical matters. The third house is practical. The sixth house is practical. Elementary education is the third house, and general occupation is the sixth house.
Or it might be such as
Yeah.
service and
Yes.
communication.
Yes, you're sensing things that aren't in the description. I'll tell you them when I give you hints.
Okay, sorry.
My imagination soars to higher things, which I offer in service and am able to accomplish and succeed because I know myself in it. Imagination is the moon. The soaring to higher things is Sagittarius. And offering it in service is the sixth house. This is what she's famous for.
Mother Teresa?
No, I am able to accomplish and succeed because I know myself in it. This is a do-gooder. Beside having the moon in the sixth house, the moon is just out of orb from being conjoined to Jupiter in the sixth house, and Jupiter is sextile to Mercury and Venus in the third house. Yeah. Famous do-gooder.
More hints.
Outgoing.
One time head of the Red Cross. Her husband uses Viagra.
Barbara Dole?
Yes.
What's your name?
Elizabeth Dole.
Elizabeth Dole.
Libby Dole, yeah. Isn't that a perfect description of her? It's just, you can't help but like her. She just has niceness about her.
So moon in Sagittarius soars to higher things.
Yes.
She's the senator now, isn't she?
Huh.
She was. No, I don't think so. She's pretty old, isn't she? Too old to be a senator, not except for...
Senator in South Carolina.
She is 71 years old.
I know myself.
In South Carolina?
I believe so.
Huh. All right. Shows you how much in touch I am with things. All right. We are looking at number 10. And we're looking at a male who has the moon in Capricorn in the fifth house. And it's sextile the sun conjoined Mercury in Scorpio and in the fourth house. And at the same time, it's square to Jupiter in Libra in the third house. These kinds of combinations are important. And the reason they're important is they pit some sextiles against a square. And if you're solving problems, the sextiles then you use to overcome the problems of the square. These were problems that were too much to be overcome, I think. Yes.
I'm sorry, I have a general question. Someone told me once that, for example, if you have an affliction in the seventh house, then you turn to the first house to look for a way to solve it.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Then another question.
Sometimes it can reflect into a problem in the opposite house.
Okay.
Probably the best thing is if there are no good aspects to a planet that has all afflictions to it, if there are no good aspects to it, what you do is look to the planetary opposite.
You look to the planetary opposite, not
Yes.
necessarily
So like if it's, in this case, if it's Jupiter problems, you would look for Saturn because that would be the planet that would most likely to be the antidote. All right. That's using allopathic thinking rather than homeopathic thinking.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
We speak.
My feeling nature, which is a reflection of my mind and ego, is cold, partial, and there may even be cruelty in it that arises from subconscious inner darkness. All right? The feeling nature is the moon. The reflection is the sextile. To the mind and the ego is Mercury and the sun. Is cold, Capricorn is cold, Scorpio is cold. Patriarchal, is Capricorn. And there may even be cruelty. Capricorn or Scorpio are likely to be cruel. That arises from subconscious inner darkness is the subconscious inner darkness. The inner darkness is Scorpio, and the subconscious is the fourth. So there's a mixture here of the sextile being positive and negative. To relieve myself from the darker and heavier tones, I try to build the ability to express more jocular sentiments, but instead I communicate emotionalism. That's a bad, it should be communicate instead of communication. All right, to relieve myself, that is from the darker and heavier tones, he tries to build. The building is the square. The ability, any aspect is an ability or is a talent, to express, fifth house. Jocular sentiments is the moon and Jupiter. Jupiter especially is jocular. But instead I communicate, third house, emotionalism. Meaning to say that when the moon is in affliction with Jupiter, there's a lot of big-time emotionalism. I don't think you would guess this person at all from these sentences.
What did he do?
He was a propagandist.
Edward Bernays.
No. It's a, what? You see, I told him, once he gets on a roll, that's 3 in a row.
Oh, Goebbels, but okay.
Goebbels,
I was in the
Goebbels.
right era, Goebbels.
Yeah. He looks more like me than any other person I've ever seen. Yes. He's a mirror image. Where I have the scar on this side, he has it on the other side. Yeah. And
He looks like a ferret.
there was another man from South Africa that looks very much like me also. Very accomplished man, though. Famous South African author. What's his name? The Jungian?
Cheney?
No, really brilliant man. Vanderpost. Vanderpost. I saw a movie that was an interview movie of Vanderpost, and I couldn't watch the movie. I was so distracted that he looked so much like my person.
Wow.
Yeah, it was scary. You know, those kind of things happen. All right. We're down to the last female, and I saved the best for the last. The moon is in Aquarius and the second house, conjoined to Saturn in Aquarius and the second house, and they both trine Jupiter in Libra in the 9th house. One of those combinations that Jerry doesn't believe can happen at all. All right. I am cautious and possessive of my feelings, but I am also objective about them, and I have good sentiments of commonwealth, and I have a superb sense of justice and equality. Boy, all kinds of errors in here. I got to get a secretary to sit on my lap and correct my grammar and typos, which is purposeful and inclined to loftiness. All right. Cautious is the moon conjoined Saturn, both being in the second house, saying that there's possessiveness about the feelings. But at the same time, there's objectivity. Aquarius is indifferent objectivity. Second house is objectivity altogether, and Saturn likes to be objective, so that all fits together real nice. And I have good sentiments of commonwealth. We're talking about the moon in Aquarius is sentiments of commonwealth. And I have a superb sense of justice, not justices. This is the trine of both planets, especially Saturn and Jupiter, is a superb sense of justice and equality. Both Libra and Aquarius like equality. And it's purposeful. The ninth house is purposeful, and Jupiter is purposeful and inclined toward loftiness. The ninth house and Jupiter are both inclined toward loftiness. All right? My emotions are generous without being excessive, and they are careful without being petty. I have good, sound emotional judgment, highly perfected. Now we're talking about here the combination of Saturn and Jupiter. The generous is the moon trine Jupiter, but as we just saw, moon trine Jupiter can be very emotional, but the Saturn holds it so that it is not excessive. But Saturn conjoined the moon is careful, but the Jupiter does not let it get petty. So I have good, sound emotional judgment, highly perfected, meaning to say there's a pretty strong trine. This person is not famous for that, but certainly has all of that and a whole lot more. Oh, thump, a thump, a thump. My heart goes for this person. I'll give you a hint. The hint is right in the combination. It is somebody that with this trine with the moon shows that she has kept her femininity and aged gracefully. You want another hint?
Yeah,
She's eligible now.
she's a hot babe. In her
She's-
70s.
Oh,
She's-
the gal who played on Dallas.
No, I don't think she was ever on Dallas.
Was one of,
She may be in a spaghetti western, but never in
A
Dallas.
superb sense of justice and equality.
Oh, come on, Mark. It's on the tip of your tongue.
Careful
It's Sophia Loren.
Ooh,
Oh.
baby.
Oh,
Ew, yeah.
hmm,
Good taste, Richard.
I was thinking somebody else.
yeah. And a lot of her soulfulness was developed through death. If you want to see the horoscope, this is what the horoscope looks like.
Was it
That's because she kept having all those miscarriages of babies.
oh.
And in fact, I had a menage once with my friend who had a similar condition, and Sophia Loren. After her second miscarriage, we got together and looked at her horoscope and compared it to Sophia Loren's horoscope so that we could get an understanding of what's going on. I mean, it was a little bit successful. It wasn't
Where are the miscarriages?
all the planets in the 8th house.
All the planets in the 8th house.
Yeah. Yes. You love something and that's also where the tax woes come in. Remember that she and Carlo Ponte had all those tax woes? And I called her up and I said, I'll send you 25 a month.
So if you're a woman and you have planets in the 8th house,
Anybody who has planets in the 8th house, yes, especially in a woman's chart, a combination of afflictions between the 5th house and the 8th house are likely to miscarriages or something of that nature.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. So
All right. We're looking at the last one. We have the moon in Pisces in the 7th house. And it's trine to Mercury in Scorpio in the 3rd house. And it's trine to Pluto in Leo and the 11th house. And it's opposite to Neptune in Virgo in the 12th house. Want to try spontaneously whipping one on?
my poetic emotional sensibility around partners perfects the intensity of my mind and communication.
Okay.
And
So this is somebody that knows how to rap chicks, you're saying.
yeah, he can talk real good, and is reinforced. Wow. by a majestic, I don't know exactly how to talk about Pluto in the 11th house. Transformation of friends, like very persuasive, very powerful. And let me see, opposition. But is made somewhat ambivalent by a critical sensitivity to universal problems.
Okay. Pretty good. Pretty good.
Like the Pluto wasn't so good.
Yeah.
I was
Oh, there's another typo. This emotionality is compassionate to even the delicate conditions of others, but it is complicated, perhaps leaning towards superstition if allowed to become excited. The emotionality is the moon. Compassion is Pisces, and the delicate emotions are Pisces, and the conditions of others is the 7th house. But it is complicated by the trine to Mercury and complicated by the opposition to Neptune and Virgo. Perhaps leaning towards superstition, meaning to say that the spiritual side of Neptune, if it gets mixed up with too much emotionality, it becomes excited and superstitious. All right? In general, the emotions and feelings are controlled by a combination of staunch, sincere application of will and by an educated, concrete mind that delves into the mysteries of emotions.
an educated, concrete mind.
In general, meaning to say the most of the aspects of the moon, the emotions and feelings are the moon, are controlled, meaning to say that the trine allows you to get your hands around them by a combination of staunch, sincere application of will. The staunch is Pluto, the sincerity is Leo, and the application of will is Pluto and even Leo for that matter. And by an educated, 3rd house is education, concrete mind, Mercury, that delves into mysteries of the emotions, Mercury in Scorpio.
Mysteries of the emotions is Mercury and Scorpio.
Yeah, Scorpio delves into just about everything.
Okay. So what's the 11th?
There wasn't enough room for enough words in there. There was a lot of run off the paper. Any guesses?
Carl Jung?
No? You're going in the right direction, only you're just not weird enough.
Anything concrete mind that delves into mysteries of the emotions. Elaine.
No, it is your instructor.
I thought it was you.
Ah!
All right.
Ah!
Good.
I should have said so.
These are the assignments for next time and who it was this time. Yeah, it's fun doing this, isn't it? It's a great way to learn and understand people and
I'm like, I really yearn, I mean, like, you can just say, like, when the moon is square Jupiter, there's a kind of emotionalism. I can't say
yeah.
that, yeah, but it's like, it starts to, it's like reading a personal chart,
Yeah.
is what it's like.
Hmm.
I was just watching Paul Joseph Goebbels on,
Yeah.
I was watching a documentary called The Century of the South, which is about Freud and Edward Bernays and
Yeah.
it's whole drive of advertising public relations and advertising in the United States.
Oh yeah, how's it all
They
go?
didn't call it propaganda because
Yeah.
it's like a bad thing. I showed it to my students, so we were just looking at him today.
Hmm.
Goebbels. I don't think he looks like he's that much. You look more
There were people
regal to me. He looks more.
30-some years ago, there were people on campus who would not come to the bookstore or who would not get within a block of me because I looked so much like him.
Wow.
Especially when they heard things like Rosicrucian and things like that that were associated with Teutonic peoples and such.
Right,
It just wouldn't come anywhere near.
right, right.
So,
I guess I should cut.
yeah.
Oh, the way you made people say